Hey folks, today I'd like to talk about the Chasing Dory ROV that I've got right here. An ROV is a remotely operated underwater vehicle, or an underwater drone, as some people like to call it. When this technology was originally developed back in the 50s and 60s, it was very expensive. Basically only heavily funded oceanographers and oil companies could afford them. And well, luckily technology has changed that. These days, you can actually get a consumer version of an ROV for around $5,000, which is almost affordable. But when you're a hobbyist like me, it's still way too steep of an entry-level price. So I was very happy when the Chasing Dory Kickstarter came out, because I was able to get mine for a much lower price. And I received it back in December of 2019, and it's been pretty fun to play with. I've taken it out now on 3 saltwater dives. They were all from shore. It's a fun way to get started with underwater photography without learning how to scuba dive. You may have seen my previous videos where I took the Dory out on a lake test dive. Or a bathtub test. You may have seen that video. It's been a pretty interesting learning experience trying to figure out how to pilot it using the app controls and using my thumbs on the touch screen to get it steering underwater. Because it's such a small unit, it doesn't necessarily have enough power to overcome currents of a certain strength. So I'm going to show some video of that and talk about the different stuff that I've been able to see so far. For the first saltwater dive, I took the Dory down to a nearby bridge, launched it from shore, and got down, I think, only about 6 feet to 10 feet, somewhere in that range. But I was able to get some video footage that we can look at now. This dive went a lot better than the lake dive because I think the GPS unit was oriented the correct way this time. Previously, I had it with the cable sticking up out of the top for the lake dive, and it was just resting on the ground. But for this dive, I actually flipped it the other way around so that the GPS signal could penetrate the device. I think as a result, the interface was glitch-free, and it had a stronger signal, and everything just seemed to work properly. That was very nice to experience. I didn't see very much in the way of sea life on this dive. There was, the standard sea anemones, and I think there was a hermit crab on a log that I was going past. So it was kind of uneventful in that respect, but it was very interesting to get into the atmosphere of navigating underwater, kind of being purely focused on the video feed and getting sucked into it. It was very immersive, pun not intended. Or maybe it was intended, who's to say? It was intended, sorry. Anyways, it was just really engrossing, and there was even a couple of times where I was just so focused on the screen that I would move the camera a little bit and a rock would pop out and surprise me. And I mean, you wouldn't think a rock could surprise anybody, but I think it had to do with the narrow field of view of the camera and just the focus of staring at the screen. And I think it was just that combination that made it so that you kind of forgot where you were, and then when something popped into your field of view, it was just a total surprise. It was a pretty entertaining first experience with it. It was a little bit unfortunate because I think I mistimed the tide. So after I had been in the water for a little bit, the tide changed, and this particular bridge, Tillicum Bridge in Victoria, is known for having some rapids underneath it. So the tide change can cause the flow of current to get up to 6 knots. And I believe this device is probably only best in like 2 to 3 knots or less of current. So it was, when it was out in the main channel, it was very difficult to control. But once I got into the eddy on the side, it was much more responsive and able to be controlled. I think fighting the current really put a strain on the battery and caused it to drain down a little bit faster than I expected. But I was still able to get over half an hour of dive time out of it. It was pretty entertaining. One other thing that I did on this dive that was different from the lake dive is I tied a rope around the anchor point between the buoy and the tether, just in a bowline knot that would make it so that if it happened to start drifting away, like if it got caught in the current, I would be able to pull it back without having to worry about losing the whole unit. So that helped me feel a lot safer about doing an ocean test of this nature. So thanks for watching, and I'm going to leave you with a few minutes of raw footage from the ROV, and enjoy. Bye.